I think the loudest grace in my life has been truly discovering that God never tied my worth to the things I was using to prove it. Even when churches disappointed me, leaders disappointed me, when I doubted myself, God never left. The loudest grace in my life has been discovering that God never tied my worth to all the things I was doing.
Welcome to Quiet Battles, Loud Grace, where hidden wounds meet relentless grace. We have real conversations about faith, burnout, trauma, leadership, and what it means to be human. No fake perfection, no polished answers, just honest conversations and relentless grace. Because sometimes the people helping everyone else are the ones quietly struggling the most.
Well, hey, everybody, this is Brent, and I'm here with Quiet Battles, Loud Grace. And I've got a guest on that I'm excited about today, Bo Coburn. Hey, Bo, how you doing, man?
Hey, Brent. Thanks for having me on the podcast today.
Well, we're just going to get right into it. For people who don't know you, give us just kind of the quick version of your story.
Yeah. So I'm married. I have 2 kids. My wife is Haley. We've been married coming up on 17 years, and I have 2 kids. My son is Truett, and he is 11, and my daughter is Brielle. She's 9. And they are the joy of my life. And we just moved from Knoxville, Tennessee, where we've been for the last 4 years, to Houston, Texas. So we're closer to all of the family, which the grandparents are very excited about, and Brent, who's also very excited.
You're my neighbor now. Yeah.
Yes, I am. But being in neighbors in Houston, Texas is like being 30 minutes away from everything. So
at least, good point.
It's like a healthy distance. We're not going to ask each other for sugar, but we can have dinner together, So,
right. There you go. Yeah.
Okay, I came into ministry through worship, music specifically. I went to college for music, but was on a performance journey and felt called into ministry. Music has always been a big part of my life.
Where'd you go to college?
Yeah.
Where'd you go to college?
So I went to Henderson State University,
okay,
which is a small public college, state college in Arkansas, up near Little Rock. And at that time, I had no clue I was going to be in ministry. Otherwise, I probably would have gone to the other school right across the street, Ouachita Baptist University, which has produced a lot of music people and ministry people.
Yeah.
And that's also where my wife went.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay. All right. And for context, tell everybody like what years you were in college so they'll get some idea of kind of how old you are. Or you can just tell us how old you are. Either way.
Yes, I'm 43. I will be 44. I started college late. I started college in 2004 and graduated 2008. Met my wife. She was at Ouachita. I was at Henderson. There is definitely, even though the colleges are literally across the street from each other, there's definitely a big difference. And the Ouachitonians don't intermingle with the Henderson people very much. So I got very lucky. And really, music was always a big part of my life. But what drew me into ministry wasn't really the performing aspect. It was a very specific call by God. It wasn't like an audible voice, but it was almost as strong as that. And that came my senior year of college very unexpectedly. And the call really was to use music and leadership. I wouldn't have called it leadership at that time, but and relationships, basically, to kind of grow his people. It was very specific in that way. And so I started serving church right out of college, and eventually went into full-time ministry in 2009.
Okay. And what did that look like? So that was 2009, this is 2026. What happened between 2009 and 2026?
Yeah. So over the next 15 years, basically, I served as a worship pastor. I was also an executive pastor and ministry leader in several churches. So that started, first full time job was in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I'm originally from Texarkana, Arkansas, and served there part time for a year right out of college. And then first full time job in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Served there 7 years, and then went to Southern California. Crazy.
A little bit of a
Uh,
change.
I know, huge change. Everybody thought we were going to the devil's, lair, basically. Um, and I did that for about 7 years. And then the last stint was in Knoxville, Tennessee for 4 years. So that's kind of been our journey,
Okay. And
ministry
what are you doing
wise.
now? Are you still in ministry now?
I'm not still in ministry. I'm not in full-time vocational ministry. I actually work for a company called Ministry Brands. Not going to plug them too much here in the convo, but they are kind of ministry adjacent. It's a software company that serves churches and helping them have church management software. And so I get to talk with church leaders every day and help them have better systems
Yeah.
to do their
Okay.
work. So
Okay.
that's I've been doing that for about a year and a half now.
Yeah. So when you look back on your time in specifically church ministry, what did you love most about it? Did you love anything about it? And if so, what did you love most about it?
Yeah, I've had to think about that, because I love the church. I mean, I have always loved the church, even through the difficult times, and the last 4 years have been incredibly difficult. I still believe in the local church, and the big thing that I love is seeing people take their next step with God. So, coming to know God, getting plugged in, radical life change. I loved building teams. That was something I look back on, helping people kinda discover their gifts. And I think the older I got too, the less ministry became about music, for me anyway, and the more it became about like pastoring, shepherding, leadership, helping people grow, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I loved helping churches move forward. That was a big thing that I felt God had called me to early on, was like helping churches that were stuck a little bit and helping them build volunteer teams and grow their leaders and better systems, love creating environments where people could encounter God, experience transformation. So, yeah, I really loved that.
That's awesome. You said the last 4 years have been hard. I'm gonna ask. So, at what point did you begin to realize that maybe ministry wasn't what you expected, or maybe it wasn't? Or was there ever a point when you said, "What is this that I'm doing? This isn't what I thought this was going to be."
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody experienced difficulty in their job, right? And I expected ministry to be hard, but not in the way that it was. So I expected conflict. I expected disagreement. What I didn't expect was confusion, manipulation, politics, and environments where truth didn't feel safe.
Mm,
The first, and it's not that ministry was an easy ride up until the last 4 years, because it wasn't. But the first major wake up call came after moving to Knoxville for a leadership role at a church there, because I walked in with a level of excitement, optimism, kind of believing I'd found a place where I could contribute and grow, uh, bringing the best of like my training, my leadership throughout the years, my music world, worship, meeting, administration, um, a place that fit the kind of the best of those two worlds. And instead, I kind of found myself constantly trying to understand unwritten rules and power dynamics. And I just realized between ministry, uh, and all of that, that it was just incredibly unhealthy.
yeah. When you look back, do you think there were some early warning signs that at the time you just didn't see?
Yes. Yeah, I think that's what's kind of hard. Like the first major experience was at the first church I started working at in Tennessee. about 4 years ago. So we moved our family across the country from California in 2022, just for some context, because I believed this was the next step in my leadership journey. I'd kind of reached a point. I'm like, okay, what's next? And up to that point, I had served as both a worship pastor and an executive pastor, and I was looking for a way to kind of transition more off the platform. And this church felt like the unique opportunity to move more fully into executive leadership. So it was that part of it was great. I was excited. I felt confident. I believed, I had a lot to offer in that way. But what I walked into was very different from what I expected. Um, the the culture felt very and highly political. The senior pastor was a founding pastor. I'd never worked for a founding pastor before, so that was unique. But I constantly felt evaluated, judged, but rarely like coached or trained. And we had moved
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
this way. He spent a lot of money to bring me in, um, and and they were not ready. The church was not ready for this. Um, so I spent most of my time trying to figure out how to succeed in an environment where expectations were not clear.
Yeah.
You know, After about 8 months, it became obvious it just wasn't going to work. And we had moved our entire family here.
Yeah. That had to be hard, man.
It was
Um,
devastating.
Tell us a little bit about so you ended up leaving that particular church, and
hmm
what happened from there? What was that experience like for you in that time? Like all of a sudden you've been in ministry and now you're not, and you're on kind of on the outside, and the people that had moved you across the country that you thought were going to be family, that you thought were going to be friends, they're no longer there. What was that like for you?
It was lonely. Um, you know, when church doesn't work, um, it's not just a job, it's the place that you do life, that you do ministry, that you're raising your family, it's a community, it's all those different things. So it just felt really lonely. Um, the next two things are what rocked me because they just were back to back incidents.
Yeah, tell us about them.
We tried to move our family to Texas because it's a lot closer. We're here now, but then we tried to move our family to Texas. After about 8 months, it was obvious it wasn't going to work. So there came an attempt to move closer to a church in Dallas. Um, and this one was pretty devastating. I mean, we interviewed with them. It was great. They flew us down twice. It's a big deal to do all of this. We signed a contract with them. We packed our house. I had 1 month of severance left from the other church. Um, Family drove in from out of town to be there with us on the weekend they voted us in. I don't know if anybody has that, but this church, they voted. Um, we we met with a realtor they put us with. We were looking at houses. We led worship for the church. The congregation voted. We went to a swim party with the staff that night. And then the next day on Monday, we got asked into a meeting. The senior pastor and the executive pastor looked at me across the table and they said, well, the vote was 92% in favor of you coming. I'm like, yeah, that's great. We accepted. We accepted. They prayed for us that Sunday morning. They announced that we were the next worship pastor and prayed for us live on Sunday morning, the next Monday. The vote was 92%, but we expected it to be 97%. That's what leadership said. It was 92%. We expected it to be 97%. And we believe that is a vote of no confidence
Wow.
in your leadership, and we didn't like your worship leading style, and so we don't want you to take the position.
Wow. That
I
had to be
mean,
devastating. That's
it
crazy.
was devastating. I
Yeah.
mean, not let alone like job wise devastating. Thought I was saved from from all the stuff that had happened before, but just moved into another state of craziness, and what am I gonna do about my family? So our entire
Right. Yeah.
future disappeared. In that moment, it was like I went in a matter of minutes, I went from hired to unemployed. And so that did shatter a lot of confidence in my ability to evaluate opportunities, right? But also discern God's direction.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so we were already attending another church in Tennessee in the interim time, just as a place of healing for our family. And honestly, that church felt like God was rescuing us. So this is the third church in that time span. So the executive pastor and I were acquaintances. We knew each other. We had been in a cohort together when I was serving in California, and he had been walking this journey with us. He knew exactly what happened at the other church. He knew exactly what had happened in Texas. He was praying with our family, praying with our family. Um, he told uh, he told us that he knew the pain that we were in, loved on us, cared for us, took me to lunch, ministered to me. He told me that he wanted me to come work for him at the church he was at,
Okay.
and told me it was going to be a different culture. And he told me he didn't need me to be an expert; he just needed a leader. He needed somebody who would love the team and who understood church. And there were a bunch of young people working there, and he wanted me to come love on them and lead them. So it was like the Lord had rescued us. It felt exactly what we needed. In fact, I didn't want to take the job because the position was not something that I had a ton of experience in. I had led teams that had done work specifically in communications, but I had never specifically been just a communications director. So um, I was pretty apprehensive about it, but man, they chased after us. They wanted us to work there, and told us this is this is going to be a time of healing for your family. This is going to be a season of healing for you. That we're a different kind of church, a different kind of leadership. Uh, so it felt exactly like it was what we needed, and it was at a really tough time. And unfortunately, it became another deeply painful ministry experience. I mean, back to back experiences. Things changed in the first few months of working there, but I felt like I had to make it work. I mean, the other ones had failed, I failed, and I couldn't fail my family again. Um, but my gosh, and for the first time in my life, seriously began considering whether I needed to step out of ministry altogether. Um, so, so that's what I did.
Man, that those experiences are tough. When you think about the impact that had on you, talk to us a little bit about the impact that it had on your emotions, on your mental health. Did it cause changes in how you saw the world, how you saw the church? What was going on
Yeah.
with you?
Yeah. I'm thankful that I had some people like you, friends, some other mentors that were loving on me in that time, and honestly were calling out the bad behavior for what it was. But for me, it felt like it was me. The biggest impact, honestly, for the first time in my life, I was having panic attacks. I'd never experienced that before. Anxiety, loss of confidence, huge loss of confidence, and loss of trust in myself. I gained about 30 pounds. I was constantly every day second guessing myself, everything. I was so tired, so exhausted. I stopped trusting my judgment on things. I wasn't just questioning leadership anymore. I was questioning me. I mean, that was the real problem. I thought about work every day, all the time. I would wake up in sweats in the night thinking about situations that had happened, things that were said, things that were done. I replayed, oh, this is the worst. It's taken me a year and a half to stop doing this. And sometimes I still do it, but I would play the conversation over and over constantly in my head. I tried to figure out what I was missing. What was I doing wrong? How could I fix it? How did I need to improve? Um, the hardest thing I lost wasn't the jobs. It was my confidence. It was my identity, basically.
Yeah, and was there anyone in the church world that um reached out to you, that like from one of these churches, one of these two churches or one of these three churches you just told us about? Did anybody try to be redemptive or try to reach out to you and help in any way during that time?
No, no, not once. In fact, if they had reached out and leadership found out, they would be outed.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
That's pretty
culture,
pretty
yeah,
normal, and people that aren't in the
yeah,
church world don't understand that.
yeah, yeah.
But that's pretty normal. Yeah. It
Yeah, I
stinks.
mean, if it does stink, because they were people that you trusted, that you did life with, who loved on your kids, you know, who you shared prayer needs with. You know what I mean? So then they just cut off contact with you because you're marked. You have a disease basically, and you're cast out. And then if they try to reach out to you, um, they're put on the poop list.
Right. Yeah. Speaking of your kids, how did all that affect your family, your marriage, your kiddos?
Yeah. I mean, I think all of us try to protect our kids as much as we can. We probably drag our wives, our spouses into it more than we want to. Before all of this happened, I was a big believer that you really try not to share much with your spouse about stuff like this. Like, like if you have conflict at work, you don't bring that home because, my wife has to sit under that leadership too. And I might make up with Johnny or Tom or whatever their name is, but then she doesn't really have the chance to do that. She carries it with her, and I don't know about anybody else's spouse, but mine takes on that burden. She wants to fight for me, and she feels it deeply. I couldn't do that with this. I was having panic attacks. I was feeling the weight every day. And so my family ended up carrying it with me. That's the truth. Yeah, when you're struggling at that level professionally and emotionally, you don't have much left to give at home. Um, I was pretty short tempered in those seasons. I really do reflect back on those. It was pretty tough because I think my kids probably bore the weight of that more than anyone else, just because I didn't have the patience for them. Um, and then my wife too, because I needed somebody to talk to, and so she ended up carrying all of that. So yeah, I brought it home. I brought the conflict home, I brought the anxiety home. My wife carried, the emotional weight of it all. And over time, it really became difficult for her to trust leadership because she was watching what was happening to me every week. So she was hearing the stories, she was seeing the effects, and it's difficult to worship under leadership on Sunday when you're watching the same leaders wound your spouse Monday through Friday, you know? And of course, then my kids experience anxiety. At one point, they were like, "Is Daddy ever going to keep a job?" You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they didn't know there's financial stress, job loss, moving plans. They said goodbye to their friends 3 times in Tennessee at the end of the school year. They said goodbye 3 times, and so they watched their parents try to make sense of all of that. So ministry hurt never stays at church.
Yeah. Yeah. Was there ever a point when you began to seriously question your calling, your faith, or both?
Of course, yeah. I mean, and am I still questioning it? I definitely question my calling. I sometimes I still do. I'm like, was that voice the calling from the Lord, or was that bad pizza that I had, or was that, did I just want to hear those things? Yeah, I questioned it. I questioned whether I misunderstood God. And I'll be honest with you, I think a lot of people experience this differently. Some people actually lose their faith. They deconstruct from Christianity. But I never stopped believing in God. I think I was deconstructing my belief system that was so tied um, to my performance, my who I my usefulness. Um, I stopped trusting my ability to hear him clearly. That's the truth. I did. I wasn't questioning God's faithfulness. I was questioning my discernment. In fact, I thought somehow, I don't know how many times I repented in that 4 years. I was like, I just thought I had sinned against him in some way that I didn't understand. I was facing this punishment from him for him allowing all of this um, to happen. So yeah, it was a big part of what was happening at that time.
Yeah. I think there's deconstruction isn't necessarily a bad term. I think in
Right.
a lot of ways it's a
Yeah.
really good thing as
Yep.
long as you don't walk away from your faith, right? You were kind of deconstructing how you saw yourself and how you saw the church, maybe?
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. I felt like I had a picture in my mind of what church and ministry was supposed to look like, um, and what my personal calling and what ministry for me could look like. Um, and I felt like the Lord was challenging all of that, and allowing the season to kind of break that down. Um, which I guess in the end I'm thankful for. I feel like I'm at a different place now than I was then. I'm sure we'll get to that, but yeah, I mean, I felt broken
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
that, I felt like I was broken, like, and that's honestly why I got out of ministry, full-time vocational ministry, because I thought I was broken. I'm like, I gotta step out because something in me is broken. My my ability to lead others, my ability to discern what the Lord wants and how to navigate church world was all broken.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting because, if you're a doctor and you have a parting of ways with the other partners in your practice, you just go work for a new clinic. Or if you're a school teacher and you don't get along with the principal, you just go work at a new school or things like that. But ministry is so much different. And I feel like church hurt and when you're in ministry, when you're in that machine, it just hits differently. And I'm just wondering, what do you think is different? How is it different for a person who's in ministry when they get wounded by the very place that they felt called to, or the place that shaped them? Because the church, capital C, we're part of it. A lot of us from the time we're born. Like I grew up in it, and then it was that very institution that hurt me. I mean,
Mhm.
I did my own part to contribute to that, right? But what do you think people outside that world don't understand about?
Yeah, I think, I mean, you may experience this some too, Brent. Now, I work at a job. I work at a secular company, and people leave all the time, and people get hired all the time, and people get fired all the time. And when I clock out, per se, I don't think about this job. I'm like,
Right, right.
I mean, if they're listening, I love you, but I don't. It's like it's just my income, and it's what I do, and I like what I do. Um, but it's just a job, It's just a job, and if another job opportunity came along and it was better, I'd probably highly consider it. But ministry isn't just a job. Your calling, what you believe is your calling, is wrapped up in that. Your community, your friends, your purpose, your identity, wrapped up in all of that. So when the place that teaches you about God heals you spiritually, mentally, emotionally, empowers you, becomes a place that wounds you, that confusion just runs so much deeper. So church hurt isn't just about losing a job, it's grieving a place that helped shape your faith.
Yeah. Wow. Well, so fast forward to today, 2026, June of 2026 is when we are. What is life like now, and how did healing begin for you? What helped? What didn't help? Or you may still be on that journey. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Good news, I'm perfectly healed. I'm all better now. Nothing is wrong.
It's
It was
all rainbows and
magic.
unicorns.
Yeah, I think healing began for me when I stopped asking, what should I do next? And started asking, who am I? Who am I without ministry? Who am I? Uh, Counseling helped. Goodness gracious. If you're not in counseling, everybody needs to be in counseling because we're all messed up. Coaching helped. Friends with people like you helped. Honestly, for me, stepping outside of vocational ministry helped. I don't know that everybody needs to do that, but I needed to do that. Learn because I needed to learn that my identity had become tied to performance.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of that's from trauma, right? Inside of me. That was from my childhood. We don't even have time on this to get into that. But a lot of it was the place that I hid. I hid in ministry, my significance, my competence, external validation. I had to break away
Yeah.
from all of that. And
A
what did not
shameless
help me. Yeah, go ahead.
shameless plug. I have a
Yeah.
course called Applause as a Terrible Therapist that talks exactly about that, because I think, and don't lose your train of thought because I want you to come back to that. But I think a lot of people who go into ministry, and it may be true of other professions as well, but I see it more in ministry. They're trying to heal wounds, childhood
Yes.
wounds, feelings of
Correct.
insignificance, feelings of, whatever. They're trying to heal that through
Yes.
applause on the stage or through applause from a pastor, or they're trying to, their identity becomes so entrenched in that role that when the role is gone, they are gone, their identity is gone.
That's
And I think that's
exactly
kind
right.
of what you're talking about.
It is exactly what I'm talking about. And I didn't think it was. I guess I didn't realize that it was there. That's the truth. I mean, I didn't realize how much I needed all of that, or how much it was all tied up in there. So, um, yeah, for me, the way that I fixed my go-to fix was try harder, be better. For years, I thought if I could become better, smarter, stronger, or more competent, everything would work out. Everything would work out. I mean, doesn't that sound? I mean, that's why I need to be in counseling because there's no church, no job, no
Right.
marriage, no amount of
Right.
money. There's nothing that can fix that. That's a father wound. That's a deep, deep stuff that had to be fixed. And so yeah, so no, I'm not perfectly healed. I am on a journey, and healing did not come through striving. It came from actually having everything ripped away from me, and accepting that I'm loved regardless.
It's good stuff, man. When you look back on it, what do you wish somebody had told you in the middle of all that?
Run. No, I'm kidding.
Become a lawyer. Become a
Right,
lawyer.
yes, do not. Oh, you and I've had a lot of conversations about kind of the corporate church world, and a lot of it is not biblical at all, or godly. And so I think there's some of that, but I think I wish somebody, um, and I don't know how they would have told me this, to be honest with you, Brent. I think there's part of my journey, but that my value is not tied to my position. Um, I knew this in my head, but I didn't know it in my heart. And truthfully, I needed healing in this area to begin with. Back to your shameless plug there. Uh, I wish someone had told me that just because ministry ends, it doesn't mean God is finished with me. I held on to positions way longer. I stayed longer because I felt like I God had called me there, and I needed to just, trudge through it no matter what. And I think this is some of the things that I did here, but now I see, and am glad to help other people. But like I just because of ministry, just because not every environment can be fixed, and not every failure is mine to own.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
just because a ministry ends doesn't mean God is finished with you. I think it looks different now.
Yeah, well, and if you were a pastor or worship leader or some sort of ministry leader, and you're listening to this right now, and you're in a toxic environment, what do you
Mm,
want them to know? What do you want those listeners to know? If they are currently right now thinking that was my life, and tomorrow morning I've got to go back into the office and I got to deal with it all again tomorrow, what would you want
mm,
them to hear?
yeah. Pay attention to what your body's telling you. Um, Anxiety, confusion, panic, loss of self, those are not from the Lord. Those aren't things to ignore. You need to get outside perspective. You need to have somebody you can talk to. You need to have a place you can go that's safe. Um, Find safe people. Don't not on staff. Don't do that. Outside of your staff. Um, don't assume every problem is yours to solve. And this is a big one. I think don't confuse staying in an unhealthy environment with faithfulness.
Say that again louder for those in the back.
Don't confuse staying in an unhealthy environment with faithfulness
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
because it's
Well,
not.
what do you think all of this has taught you about God that maybe you wouldn't have learned any other way?
Yeah, there's probably knowing me and you know me, there's probably no other way I would have learned it. Pretty stubborn, but God is really the work that I think has happened in me is God has spent the last several years separating my identity from my usefulness. That I'm loved for who I am, for who He made me, who He called me to be. I'm just loved. I'm not loved because I perform or my job or anything. I'm just loved, and it's okay to be me. Like I can accept me for who God made me to be. Um, for most of my life, I've known that God loved me. What I didn't realize was how much of my worth was tied to being successful, needed, significant. That's a big one for me. So He's teaching me that His love isn't tied I'm all to my performance. I'm already significant to Him. That's been the main one.
So good, man. So you're in a new season now. You're in a new town. You're in a new house. You're in the middle
I
of
got good
the
friends.
right. Even though it takes an hour and 45 minutes to drive over there because of traffic, but
Yep,
you got lots of humidity, right? I was outside today. I was like, wow, it's humid. But so in this new
it's so hot.
season, what is it that gives you hope?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that give me hope. For one, we moved here to be closer to family. Our two kids, I want them to be involved in their grandparents' lives and vice versa. And so this time it wasn't just moving for a job or for a specific, we moved to plant roots. And so that's been great. My wife and I are healthier than we've been in years. When you go through something like this together, I mean, I guess it can separate you, but we leaned on each other so hard in that time. We became each other's confidants, best friends. We only had each other. We didn't have anybody else, and so it was really hard. But man, we have a deep love and respect for each other that maybe we didn't have before. Um, we're learning who we are outside of ministry positions. Um, we found a church actually in Tennessee that was a place of healing for us. Lord allowed us to be at before we moved here for the last year, and that was a big eye opener. I think God gave it to us just to see what was possible. That you can have a different type of healthy church environment. Um, but I don't have all the answers. I still don't know exactly what's next for us. But for the first time in a long time, I'm more interested in becoming healthy than just being successful. And I think that's been a guiding light for us.
Yeah. That's awesome. I remember, so I walked through the listeners that don't know, someday I'll tell you my story, but I walked through similar things as Bo. And I remember, so I grew up in a preacher's home, never got to pick where I went to church. Then I went directly into ministry out of college, never got to pick where I went to church. And then I remember a couple of years ago when we got to pick where we went to church for the first time ever, I was like, a couple of rules. Number one, The service time has to start with an 11. I do not want to get up any
Yeah, we're
earlier
not
than
doing
10
the
a.m.
6 o'clock call
Right,
times anymore.
right. And the other rule is can't have any LED walls. No LED walls and no haze machine. So those are my rules.
That's so specific.
We got in there, and right before the message, the pastor every Sunday, who I love him, but every Sunday he prays the Lord's Prayer. And I remember the very first Sunday we were sitting there, we got to that line, and in the culture, the community that I was in, we didn't normally say the Lord's Prayer. You know, there might be a song about it every now and then, but we didn't say it corporately every week. We got to that part where he goes, "Give us this day our daily bread," and it just hit me in that moment that right now I just need manna for today. I don't need to worry about tomorrow or the next day or the month after that. And you know, I think that's a beautiful thing that God teaches us when we go through things like this, is that He's giving us what we need for today. And you know, as you guys look forward, what do you think, or what do you hope when you look back on all this? What do you hope to be able to say one day to your kids about this? What do you hope to be able to say to your grandkids? Like, what do you hope to be the legacy that comes from this journey?
God's faithfulness. That's the truth. Never let life circumstances dictate your faith in God. Because the truth is, I'm not going to blame him for causing it, but he had a very specific plan and purpose through it. And it took me a while to realize it. And I would not want to go back, but I'm different because of it. And he keeps doing that in my life. Again, we don't have time to go through all of our personal history stuff here on this podcast, but when I look back, I see his faithfulness.
Yeah. I titled this podcast "Quiet Battles, Loud Grace" because what I mean it to say is a lot of people, not just in ministry, but school teachers and janitors and bus drivers, everybody is usually, you know, most people are dealing with some sort of quiet struggle that the world doesn't know about. Or sometimes the struggles are not so quiet, but God's grace is always louder than the struggle. And so I like to finish every podcast and ask this question. I want you to finish this sentence. The loudest grace in my life has been, what has the loudest grace in your life been?
I love this question. I loved all the questions, by the way. I love this. I think the loudest grace in my life has been truly discovering that God never tied my worth to the things I was using to prove it. Even when churches disappointed me, leaders disappointed me, when I doubted myself, God never left. The loudest grace in my life has been discovering that God never tied my worth to all the things I was doing. He remained faithful to me even when I couldn't make sense of what he was doing.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for being here today.
Yeah.
Now
Thanks,
that you're
Brian.
my neighbor, you can buy me dinner. How cool is that?
Yes, I can. You can also invite me over to your house, which you haven't done yet, for all the podcasts.
Well, you've only been here for like 24 hours, so, you know.
But yeah, that's true. Okay, this weekend then.
All right. Well, again, thank you for being here. Thank you for being, for sharing your story, for trusting whoever happens to be listening to this with your story, for trusting me with it. And, I'm excited to see what God's going to do in the life of your family over the next weeks, months, years. And, I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this. And if you're out there listening and you are in a toxic environment or you're struggling and you need a little bit of help, would love to help you. It's a nonprofit, doesn't cost you anything. So thanks for listening. And again, Bo, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Brent.
Thanks for listening to Quiet Battles, Loud Grace. Quiet Battles is sponsored by the Backstage Project, a nonprofit organization providing hope, support, and resources for ministry leaders, creatives, and others navigating life's difficult seasons. To learn more, get involved, or support the mission, visit thebackstageproject.org. Until then, may you find strength for today's battle and grace for tomorrow's.